I have been putting real miles on it for errands, grocery runs, and a bunch of sloppy, rutted trails after a big rain, and I wanted to share what it is actually like to live with, not just what the spec sheet says. In my head, this sits in that moped-style electric bike category where you want strong torque, real brakes, and enough comfort to ride longer than a few blocks. I would call it a performance-focused option without crossing into the super premium price tier. It feels built for people who split time between city streets and rougher shortcuts, or anyone who wants a car replacement for short trips without giving up speed on hills. I went with the 48-volt, 15 ampere hour version, which means the motor is rated at around 750 watts with a peak around 1500 watts. On flat roads, I see an honest top speed close to 30 miles per hour when I am using the throttle. I weigh around 180 pounds, and it pulls me up my usual steep climb without drama. If you have long hills in your routine, this is the kind of bike that does not make you beg for momentum. The first time I mashed the throttle from a dead stop, I actually laughed because the launch felt more like a little motorcycle than a bicycle. Assembly was straightforward but not flawless. It arrives mostly put together. I took my time with the front wheel and brake alignment, and I did a quick pass on the handlebar cables because they looked a bit crowded out of the box. Nothing required special skills, and if you have ever built a flat pack shelf, you will be fine. Just be patient with the last little tweaks to get the brakes centered and the wheels straight. Once it is rolling, the comfort is what surprised me the most. The front suspension fork and the rear shock soften the constant chatter on cracked pavement. On my bumpy shortcut behind the industrial park, where there are root heaves and broken asphalt, the bike floats just enough to keep the tires planted without feeling sloppy. The seat is long and cushy, and I can shift around to stay comfortable on longer rides. If you are very tall, pedaling might feel a little compact because the seat height is fixed, but for me, the upright stance is great in traffic and easy on my wrists. The fat tires are 20 inches with a 4-inch width, and they are the difference between white-knuckling through a muddy patch and just rolling right through. I rode after a storm, crossed a section of wet grass, and then popped back onto pavement with no wheel spin and no drama. On clean streets, they feel planted and stable, even when a bus blasts past and kicks up a gust of wind. Braking is excellent, hydraulic discs with real bite. You can modulate them with one finger, and the stopping power feels predictable. I did a quick brake test on a dry parking lot and came to a clean stop much faster than my old bike with cable brakes. In the rain, they do not get squishy or noisy, and I have a lot more confidence at speed. At around 30 miles per hour, you need that. Range depends a lot on how you ride. If I baby the throttle and keep it to pedal assist on flatter routes, I can stretch it into what I would call a full day of errands and back. When I ride full throttle on hills, the range drops like every electric bike I have ridden. I usually charge the battery at night. I like that I can remove it to bring it inside, and it locks into the frame solidly when I am out and about. The controls are simple, which I prefer. The screen is bright and easy to read in daylight. The half-twist throttle is smooth. The headlight is bright enough for dark suburban streets, and the turn signals are not some afterthought. They are visible and actually useful. The included phone mount is a thoughtful extra. I plug in my phone for navigation and it charges while I ride, so I never finish with a dead battery. The rear rack is sturdy. I put a small crate on it and haul a backpack or a light grocery run. It is rated around 33 pounds, which is enough for a couple of bags without making the bike feel top-heavy. The alarm is a nice touch. I lock the bike as usual, then arm the alarm for an extra layer. It will not stop a determined thief, but it absolutely draws attention if someone messes with it. Weight is the trade-off. This bike is heavy. It rides like a tank in a good way, but lifting it onto a car rack is a workout. If you live upstairs without an elevator, think hard about where you will store it. The keys also jingle a bit on rough roads, which is a small thing, but I noticed it more on longer rides. I fixed it by adding a tiny piece of foam to quiet them. Now for comparisons. My older bike was a basic 750-watt fat tire commuter with mechanical brakes and no rear suspension. It topped out slower, it needed more pedaling help on hills, and the brakes felt vague. The YOULON Y10 is a major step up in how it accelerates and how it stops, and the rear shock alone makes cracked city streets feel less punishing. I have also tried a much pricier moped-style bike from a premium brand that a buddy owns. That one is lighter and a bit more refined in the little details, like cable routing and a cleaner display interface, but on actual roads, the YOULON gets me almost the same top speed, even stronger initial punch, and similar comfort. For the difference in price tier, I would pick the YOULON unless you really want the boutique finish. I have had zero electrical issues so far. I did tighten the rear rotor bolts once after a week, which is just normal brake and maintenance. I also learned that it is worth checking spoke tension after the first few rides, because that first 100 miles on fat tires can loosen things up. If you do run into a problem, be ready to do small fixes yourself. This is not a featherweight bicycle, so shipping big parts back and forth is not fun. For who this fits, I would say riders who want a strong throttle, real brakes, and suspension that tames daily roads. If your rides are mostly flat and you love to pedal hard, you might want something lighter and more bicycle-like. If you're chasing the feeling of a small electric motorcycle without paying a premium for a famous badge, this scratches that itch. It is fast enough to replace short car trips, comfortable enough for longer loops, and sturdy enough to handle rough shortcuts when traffic is jammed. Is it worth buying? For me, yes. The power, the brakes, the suspension, and the fat tires add up to a bike I actually want to ride every day. I get the speed I want, the comfort I need, and enough range that I do not think about the charger all the time. It is not perfect, but the value is strong and the ride feels honest. If you have questions I did not cover, drop them in the comments. Tell me how you would set it up, and I will share what has worked for me so far. I will leave detailed information about the YOULON Y10 in the comments for your reference. Thank you for watching.